Imagine if your father was one of the most famous preachers in the world. Billy Graham preached to billions of people. He advised presidents. But at home, there were 5 children, and their stories might surprise you. Billy Graham and his wife, Ruth Bell. Graham had 5 children: Virginia Gigi Graham, Anne Graham Lotz, Ruth Bunny Graham, William Franklin Graham III, and Nelson Ned Graham. While their father was away preaching to millions, the children grew up largely through their devoted mother and each other. From the outside, a perfect Christian family, but inside those walls, there were real people with real struggles. Virginia Gigi Graham, born in 1945, Billy and Ruth Graham's oldest child. Gigi's story begins with youthful impulsiveness. When she was just 17 years old, she fell in love with and married a handsome Swiss Armenian named Stefan Tchividjian, 17 years old, marrying a foreign man and moving to Switzerland. But life there was far from a fairy tale. Gigi found herself under the strict oppression of her father-in-law. Imagine being a teenager in a foreign country in an already tense marriage. Before long, they returned to the United States. Over the years, Gigi became a mother of 7 children. She built a large family. She tried to live a quiet life in the mountains of North Carolina, but Gigi struggled with depression from the stresses of being a young mother and the expectations that came with a famous last name. While Billy was preaching to thousands, Gigi was at home changing diapers. She wondered where her own place was. During those difficult years, Gigi found an outlet through writing. She would write her thoughts on scraps of paper. These scribblings slowly turned into stories. Over time, she published 10 books on faith, family, and life. Gigi emerged from the shadows not as Billy's daughter, but as an inspiring speaker and author in her own right. After decades of marriage, Gigi and Stephen divorced. Gigi remarried and then divorced again. She would joke about having a doctorate in marriage problems. In 2012, she married her childhood friend, Jim Wilson, the son of one of Billy Graham's closest ministry partners. Today, Virginia Gigi Graham lives a happy life in North Carolina, mother of 7 children and grandmother of 20 grandchildren. Anne Graham Lotz, born in 1948, destined from the start to follow in her father's footsteps. Billy Graham said Anne was the best preacher in the family. Anne prefers to call herself a Bible teacher rather than a preacher. Anne married young. She was 18 when she married Dr. Daniel Lotz. By the time she turned 20, she was already a mother. Soon, she had 3 children. In those early years, Anne felt a sense of emptiness, as if she'd lost herself. She was searching for a deeper purpose beyond being Billy Graham's daughter. She joined a Bible study group, a life-changing study. As Anne studied the scriptures, she rediscovered her passion for teaching God's Word. Before long, she began leading Bible studies for hundreds of women. This led her to found Angel Ministries. Starting in 2000, she organized religious gatherings called Just Give Me Jesus, massive arena events. Billy Graham's daughter was passionately preaching to thousands on her own. Anne became a successful author. She wrote 11 books. She received 6 honorary doctorate degrees. But in recent years, challenges came to Anne. After 49 years of marriage, her husband Danny died in 2015. 3 years later, her father Billy Graham died at 99. While mourning these losses, Anne was diagnosed with breast cancer. For someone who had dedicated her life to teaching others to trust God, it was a major test of faith. Anne underwent surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation. "I experienced victory even in the darkest places," she said. In 2019, she was declared cancer-free. She gave the message, "Don't wait for a crisis to build a relationship with God." Ruth Bunny Graham, born in 1950. Her life was perhaps the most publicly turbulent among the Graham children. Ruth married a man she deeply loved. She spent 21 years with him, raised 3 children, but the marriage ended as the Graham family's first divorce. When Ruth learned her husband had been unfaithful, she was devastated. Not just the betrayal, but also feeling the weight of being Billy Graham's daughter. Ruth felt humiliated. She thought that as a Graham, she had to appear perfect. The stigma she felt was crushing. She even considered suicide. Her father initially encouraged her to avoid divorce, but ultimately, the marriage couldn't be saved. We all struggle with life's mess. You can't just slap a Bible verse on a wound and expect it to heal, Ruth said. But her trials weren't over. After her divorce, she rushed into a second marriage. On New Year's Eve, she married a handsome widower. It turned out to be a terrible mistake. Within 24 hours, she realized she'd married the wrong man. Within 5 weeks, she left this marriage too. Twice married, twice divorced. She felt she had failed herself. In shame, Ruth returned to her family's home. As she rounded the last bend in the driveway, her father, Billy Graham, was waiting for her. He knew what had happened. Ruth expected to see disappointment in her father's eyes. Instead, Billy hugged his daughter and simply said, "Welcome home. No shame, no blame, just unconditional love." The great evangelist showed his daughter the pure grace he had been preaching. That embrace healed something deep in Ruth's heart. In the following years, Ruth remarried. In her 50s, she had her third and even fourth marriage. She calls herself serially married. Ruth founded a ministry called Ruth Graham and Friends. She organized conferences for people who felt hurt in church. One of her books is In Every Pew Sits a Broken Heart. It emphasizes that no one's family is perfect, not even the Graham family. Today, Ruth lives in Virginia, mother of 3 children and grandmother of 8 grandchildren. William Franklin Graham III, born in 1952, Billy's oldest son. Franklin wasn't the child of a saint. He was a classic rebel, a wild child. Young Franklin gave his parents worry. He had long hair, got low grades, had a tobacco and alcohol habit. The famous preacher's son was secretly smoking cigarettes and drinking beer. He rode fast motorcycles. He still loves making noise with his Harley today. His mother, Ruth, joked that she spanked Franklin almost every day. He had that mischievous spark. Franklin believed in God, but wasn't ready to dedicate his life to the same mission as his father. He resisted the idea of preaching. Everywhere he went, people asked, "Are you going to be a preacher like your dad?" Franklin's answer was essentially, "Not anytime soon." In his 20s, he met Bob Pierce, founder of Samaritan's Purse. This meeting sparked something in Franklin. Franklin connected with this hands-on mission. In 1979, at 27, Franklin became president of Samaritan's Purse. He was flying aid to war zones, delivering help to remote villages. His father's evangelistic calling was never far away. In 1995, Billy announced Franklin as his successor. The prodigal son had taken over his father's legacy. Franklin was now leading crusades, preaching to tens of thousands. The wild child had come home. "My dad doesn't like to say no, but I can say no," Franklin said. Billy was gentle and diplomatic. Franklin is more outspoken. He preaches at biker rallies wearing a leather jacket. Under Franklin's leadership, Samaritan's Purse became a global relief organization. In 1974, he married his wife, Jane. They have 4 children. His son, Will Graham, also preaches, the 3rd generation of the Graham family. In his 70s, Franklin shows no signs of slowing down. Nelson, Ned Graham, born in 1958, the youngest child. His story is the most surprising. In his youth, Ned struggled to find his place. If Franklin was the prodigal son who returned roaring, Ned was a quiet wanderer. Ned drifted into darkness on his own path. Franklin's rebellion was loud. Ned's situation was more hidden and more dangerous. He fell into substance abuse. Ned admitted he became addicted to drugs like cocaine. Billy Graham's youngest son was under the influence of cocaine. For a while, that was the reality, but his family never gave up on him. Billy and Ruth showed Ned unconditional love, even in his worst times. "They never made me feel rejected," Ned said. Billy and Ruth prayed, waited with patience and grace. Eventually, that love pulled Ned back. The grace they showed him was irresistible. It melted his heart. Ned's transformation was a gradual journey. He went to college. He attended seminary. He got a degree from Fuller Theological Seminary. He served as a pastor in Washington. Then he felt drawn toward the Far East, especially China, for ministry. Ned's mother, Ruth Bell Graham, grew up in China. She had a lifelong love for the Chinese people. Almost poetically, Ned focused on that region. In the 1990s, he co-founded East Gates Ministries International. He supported supported the growing Christian church in China through legal channels. Ned and his team helped with legal Bible distribution in China, church leader training, and resource provision. Ned dedicated himself to this. He wasn't seeking fame. For years, no one knew what Billy Graham's youngest son was doing, but behind the scenes, Ned was making a real difference. In the 1980s, he married and had 2 sons. After 19 years, he divorced. Ned went through a turbulent period. He got help. He received substance abuse treatment. From despair, he cried out to God. He experienced deep healing through prayer. Slowly but surely, he got back on his feet. In the 2000s, he married Christina Tina Kuo, an Eastgate's colleague. Tina had supported him during the hardest times. Ned returned to Eastgate's. He's continued this work for decades. While his siblings are in the public eye, Ned's heart turned to this mission field away from cameras. Today, Ned avoids the spotlight. Those who know him speak of an extremely humble and gentle man, lead different paths. But one common thread runs through all their stories. Gigi found her voice through writing after years of depression. Anne became a powerful teacher in her own right, even surviving cancer. Ruth turned her broken marriages into a ministry of grace for hurting people. Franklin transformed from a rebel on a motorcycle into his father's successor. And Ned quietly changed lives behind the scenes in China. None of them had a perfect life. None of them escaped pain, struggle, or failure. Being Billy Graham's child didn't protect them from divorce, addiction, depression, or loss. But here's what's remarkable. Each one of them, in their own Emahama, found redemption. Not because they were perfect, but because they were loved unconditionally by their parents, especially in their darkest moments. Billy Graham preached to billions about grace and forgiveness, but perhaps his greatest sermon was the one he lived at home, waiting at the end of the driveway for a broken daughter, never giving up on an addicted son, showing up with love when his children failed. The Graham children didn't inherit a perfect life. They inherited something better, a family that showed them grace when they needed it most. And that made all the difference.